Welcome to Beyond the Brief, business life and everything in between.
Yes. So we are your hosts, Liz and Beth, and I think we have something we have talked a lot about here recently, microtrends.
Yeah, yeah. Love them, hate them. They're a struggle.
Yeah, so let's dive in a little bit more about what is a microtrend? Like why is it different than a regular trend?
Yeah. Um, so regular trends tend to last longer, I feel like. Versus micro trends are things that just come up that are relevant in in a very specific period of and moment. Um, so things like Demure, Barbie, things like that, versus longer trends that you kind of see that people kind of stick with, what you would call classic trends, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we have TikTok to really thank for the introduction of microtrends more consistently because the shelf life on TikTok videos is so short.
Yeah,
It's
that
not
is very true.
it's not like YouTube where you can expect to have really your content gains more steam as time goes on, long as you have your SEO done well. So you see things
Right.
resurface after months versus like, oh, if it doesn't hit within 48 hours, then not good.
Right. No, I agree. I think that with TikTok's algorithm, things I mean, we've experienced that, right? Like I had to go in and delete a few videos because they just didn't take off and they had one view and that was very weird. Um versus like YouTube shorts. Like there's stuff that I'll be scrolling through there and it's from months ago, like
Yeah,
months and months ago. And I'm just now seeing it. Which I think is a because you kind of get that with Instagram a little bit too, where I'm seeing older content.
definitely.
Versus TikTok being a very here and now kind of thing, which I think is really interesting.
It is, and it's definitely interesting trying to play the same type of content or general content to appease the algorithm gods for all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel like we're always praying to the algorithm gods,
Yes.
depending on what we're looking for and what we're doing.
Oh, yeah. But it just, we've definitely seen with TikTok brands becoming more, I guess, relevant, so to speak, with,
Mm.
jumping on these micro trends and just being more relatable to the consumer in general. And which can be really awesome in some ways. Like Duolingo, for example, is fabulous.
Whoever runs their social media is so funny.
Oh, they're hilarious and they need a raise, whoever they are. That like
Yeah.
not everything is fitting for them or anybody, right? I mean, demure.
This is a big oh this is a big thing for me. Seeing something that drives me nuts.
Mhm.
Um just because I get right, I get wanting to stay relevant. That's a huge part of what
Oh
we
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
That is the bulk of marketing besides the technical and analytical stuff. Like when it comes to content creation and things like that, that's a huge part of marketing is staying relevant and making sure that you're keeping up with trends and things like that. But the fact that everybody wants to jump on every single micro trend that comes across the For You page drives me nuts. Drives me
Yeah.
crazy.
Because at the end of the day, is that really the messaging that fits with your brand? Demure is the great example of that right now, right? Like, is Demure isn't necessarily what a lot of these brands are pitching as their values and their beliefs, and then they're jumping on saying like, "We're Demure, we're classy." Like, you can
This
easily,
has nothing to do with what your brand is about.
yes,
And you're not using it in the right context. That also drives me nuts. But yeah, why jump on a trend if it's not relevant to what you're doing, right? Like, we've talked before about, like, staying in our lane and knowing what we're good at and how that kind of plays across things, right? And that's something I think more people need to be aware of. I don't wanna be, like, mean and be like, "Oh, yeah, like, people need to get a grip," but, like, um, definitely looking at, what is your brand and sticking with what's gonna work for your brand and not just trying to jump on every trend.
Oh, definitely. And it comes down to stay in your lane and knowing what your lane is. And I think a lot of new businesses, that is definitely a struggle. Or at least I think we've seen with our clients and some of my past clients is like they want a lane, but they don't know where it is.
Mm,
And until then, their branding's messy. It's not for lack of
yeah, finding your
effort.
voice.
It's just not, they're not really sure. That's okay.
Yeah, and
Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, we wouldn't have jobs if, people knew what they were doing all the time. Um, that would stink. But, yeah, I definitely think people, especially newer, smaller businesses like who we tend to work with, struggle with that. I mean, we've talked about that before where when we were first deciding to kind of take off more without it just being you or just being like one person involved in Grayway. Um, kind of what that was going to look like, how that was going to fit into like both of our personalities and how we were going to handle things because we take directions differently. Which is fine. It works really well for us. I think that, that's something I've always said, like, we just work really well together, and I'm appreciative of that.
absolutely.
But, yeah, I think that can very much so be difficult for smaller businesses, new businesses, people who don't have small business experience and are starting a small business. I run into that a lot. And so helping them figure that out and then helping them kind of navigate that pathway is
Yes.
really important.
Yes.
Um,
And that it's okay to evolve.
yeah, I mean, girl, look at us. We've
Exactly.
evolved. We've come so far. So yeah, I definitely agree. That's something that is really important.
Who is on the top of your mind that does a really good job about picking and choosing their micro trends?
I would say, I mean, we talk about Jennings all the time.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
he's someone who's really he knows what his niche is. He knows what his lane is.
Yeah,
And I think he's really good about sticking with that and knowing what he is good at, what he isn't good at. Like when he comes across my page, it's always really good content and he's
exactly.
not coming across it every 5 seconds with like a new updated thing that isn't relevant to what he pushes content wise.
Exactly. And in that case, I think it's good that people understand like it is like double the responsibility. But if you're really trying to go two very different ways, it's okay to have different accounts for that reason, right? Like
Right.
you're not just
That's
stuck like TikTok, doesn't only allow you to, it's not just one account, like you can have multiple. So then it's like if you're really needing like opposite ends of the lane, that's
right.
okay.
I I also think that's something people don't realize they could do
Mhm.
either. Like it's okay to have different interests, hence, why we're business, everything in between. Like, we have a bunch of different interests, and it's great to find, a way to involve all of that into one thing, like we're doing, what we're going to be doing here. But also, I think people understanding that, like, it's okay to have different platforms, per se, for different interests is like a totally acceptable thing. Like, if you want to talk politics on one thing and do cosplay on the other, like, fantastic. You can do that. That is possible, without them being related to each other.
Exactly. I mean, and even I think, or I try to do that with two of my personal TikTok accounts. I have
Right.
one talking about my personal journey with my health, And then I have another one that's more just lifestyle, fashion, like everyday kind of things that
Right.
sometimes I bring up my health, but generally that's not the focus.
Right. And I think that also helps, with the micro trend thing of knowing, okay, if you really like a trend and it doesn't fit into this particular sector of your life, like there's another sector that it might fit into, and kind of sticking with that and knowing, hey, this isn't going to be relevant for everything that I do, but, it's here.
Exactly. And also, I think Delta Airlines does a really good job about that as well.
We've talked about them. Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
they're another good one that it's a big, I mean, international brand that they do their marketing fantastic, but it's also relatable,
Yes.
which is
And
so
they,
important.
yeah, again, they don't stick to doing every single trend. Like it's, again, when they come across my For You page, it's good content. And I think
Exactly.
that's important. Like quality over quantity for sure. I think anybody in marketing would tell you that. Anybody who does social media, influencers, good influencers, um,
Good caveat there.
gotta put that in. Good influencers, celebrities who are, great with social media, like you'll see that. They do not jump on every trend. It is something that they kind of pick and choose. And I think that's so important.
Oh,
So important.
definitely. Definitely. And not to definitely no hate to The Rock, but The Rock I get has is one that I'm like, you're kind of messy on here. And not in a bad
Yeah.
way, but it's just understand he has multiple brands and multiple hands and multiple things, not just as an actor and public figure, but it with that one account, things look a little mushy, so to speak.
Mm,
Versus like there's other celebrities that are very much like they do their promotions, but they're very strategic or
mm,
they incorporate it back into their main line of work. Ryan Reynolds is a great example with that.
yeah. He's really good at that. He's someone that I would say is very social media savvy.
Yes.
Um, which may be a generational thing. I mean, I know he is older than us, but like not by like a ton. Um, and so that's something that I think might have something to do with that, maybe.
Wow. He's
But
47.
what?
Yeah.
Okay, he's much older than us. Maybe he's
Yeah.
just really good with social media. He has a good team.
He is a good team. So
Really.
yeah, so he's a decade older than Blake.
Wow.
She's 37. So she would fall under the millennial sphere. And
Maybe
he
that's
does
his
not.
trick.
Yeah. That's
That's
how
his
this
trick.
is. Yeah. Not the
Actually,
case.
like I feel like she has said something about that before on her social media, right? Where she's like, "Oh yeah, you have like a millennial wife when like you're
Uh,
playing Backstreet Boys and like in sync and
oh yes.
doing all these things." That's how he does it. That's his trick.
Exactly.
But that takes strategy, right? And it takes knowing, staying in your lane, knowing what you want to do with your platform, and
It's not just
making
posting.
sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a strategy to it. That's another thing I don't think people understand. There's a strategy to this. It's an art form, right? Like
Mhm.
in and of itself, there is a rhyme and reason, right?
Yes.
For sure.
And that's people, influencers, certain, influencers are like, oh, they became an overnight success. Did they? They didn't.
No, if you go and look, I would say 9 times out of 10, but it's 10 times out of 10. There is content from forever, you know,
Yeah.
going back, and they just happen to hit that one, I don't know, one good day, I guess,
Yes.
where they skyrocketed. That's something about TikTok that I think is really interesting because you see a lot of different, like, I follow like a lot of like artists, not like
Mhm.
singing artists, but like physical like artists. Like,
Yeah.
fine art artists and people who like create things. And there may be 20 different people that, create the same kind of product, but this person happened to take off and has, hundred thousands of hundred thousands of followers, versus like this other person who honestly may be a better artist but hasn't quite hit that moment yet. And
Exactly.
that's something. And again, a lot of times when I'm looking at that, this person has a better strategy going. They're sticking to their lane, they're doing things, they're not trying to jump on every trend. um and again, sometimes we evolve and we become that way, right?
Yes.
But like initially, that initial chunk of content you're seeing where they're getting increased views, and we're seeing, the kind of that uptick in followers. It's usually stuff that is very in their lane, very strategic, and they've done that well, versus usually these people aren't super great about going about their strategy.
Definitely. And it's such a fine balance, and that balance definitely looks different for every creator and every business, because then it's that fine. Because as the older generations are, they still have a good amount of purchasing power, but your younger generations, your
Mm,
millennials and stuff, they're coming up and they're having more control of the economy and the markets and really where things shift. Things are being
yeah,
more personable. Millennials,
absolutely.
statistically, millennials want a connection
Yeah,
to who they're buying from, what they're buying from, if they can help
spark
it.
art.
And it
Yes,
really started, I think Gen Z really ran with it, which is phenomenal. But millennials really kind of started that consciousness of who am I buying from?
right,
I mean, I think we see that. Um, we've seen that in some ways, where we are both from, being from such a area that has such a retail giant. A lot of our age, they don't want to shop there,
right,
which is something very interesting and very like shifting in things. And so that adds that element with these, trying to manage a brand voice and account and all of that, of like be personable as well,
right.
because
I
we
think,
don't want to be
yeah,
sold to.
right. And that's the trick, right? We don't want to be sold to. We don't want to be talked to. We want to be involved in the conversation. We want to, again, TikTok does this really well with um branding and stuff like that. Like it's very subtle. It doesn't feel
Hmm.
like you're being spoken at.
Yeah,
And I feel like that's really important. I think especially, being where we are from, that's something. I mean, Small Business Saturday is a huge thing here, and a lot of our small businesses, you're getting the behind the scenes stuff. You're getting, into these trends. You're getting, the best word coming to mind is personality in there.
exactly.
You're seeing the personality of their business, and a lot of times of themselves, right? Because so much who you are is put into your business, and people are feeling like we they have connections with that. I mean, that's something I think is really important. Someone I think who does that really well is Taylor Swift.
Yep.
She has always, from the very beginning, been a very personable person, and she makes you feel like she's your best friend. And I think that's something that millennials and Gen Z, and I think even Gen Alpha, like they're obviously not old enough to like be out into the world,
Right.
but I think it's something that's one of those trends, again, a classic trend, a longevity trend that we're seeing that I think is going to be around
Yes,
for a very extended period of time. I think that's something that is going to be the new norm, is
absolutely.
seeing that connection.
And just to clarify for anybody, because some people have a little misconception about the age of millennials, the youngest millennial is 28. So, and the oldest is 43. So it's
Yeah.
definitely in the prime time of, even though, things aren't as great as they we would have thought in the economy and buying power wise, we're still that generation is still shifting to have the control over that.
Right. Yeah.
But that's what
We
I heard somebody say millennials in high school, and I'm like, no. Millennials are older. Millennials are almost 30 or over or 40.
Yeah, no. I mean, we've talked like we consider ourselves millennials because we're in this weird in between stage where like
Yes.
I remember what AOL was, but I was never on it. Like I was
Yes,
not old enough to be on it.
exactly.
Um,
I don't remember
and
most things from the 90s because I
right,
was
I was a
not
child, a
old.
little child,
Yes.
right? It's a little, very small child.
Yes.
Um, yes, absolutely. I think that's something, we're seeing and there is a like there are generational differences. I mean, I somehow ended up on the side of TikTok the other day where it was Gen Alpha's lingo.
Yeah.
Don't
Oh
don't get on
God.
that side of TikTok. It was so confusing. Side note. But yeah, we're seeing that. That's something else. Let me look up this guy's name.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what his name is. But I follow him on TikTok and he's adorable. Mr. Luke. That's who it is. Have you ever seen him?
Is he the kindergarten teacher?
He is a
Oh my
kindergarten
gosh,
teacher and
yes.
he's adorable. So he's
Yes.
someone that I feel like uses trends really well, but they are very generationally scattered, I guess. Like he does teach kindergarten, yes.
Yes.
But like something I saw the other day was like he was talking to a kindergartner, because he talks like he doesn't talk to them, but like he's talking to you
Yeah.
and you're the kindergartner. And they were like, "Oh yeah, skibbity riz," and I was like, "What does that mean?" I had to
Yes.
look it up. Truth be told, I will spill on myself. That's fine. Had to look it up. But the way that he presents it is so one is really fun, but
Oh yeah.
also he does a really great job of kind of bridging that gap a little bit. And I think that's something that's really cool. Using trends and even, micro trends as much as I'm not their biggest fan. Using them to kind of bridge gaps, I think is really a really fun way to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think in the same microtrend space, as much as I love CapCut and their templates, that's not a brand style. I hate to say it. I
Hot
love a
take,
good,
might get
it's
some
a
hate for
very
that,
hot take. That's
but it's
okay.
so true.
It's so true. They are so much fun and they're a great way to like present things in maybe a different way than you think. But like
Right.
you can't just only use templates for your
Right.
video content because it's not you.
Right.
And they're
No,
not always consistent
absolutely.
unless you're doing the same template like every single
Every single
time.
time. My take on templates. They're not my favorite. I have stood by that. It's something I don't understand. Um, I mean, I understand it like conceptually, right? But
Right.
like, I do not understand why people just think that you can go into marketing and be like, oh yeah, like I'm just gonna drag and click this and plug everything in and it'd be fine. Like I don't need to put any creativity necessarily into this. That's a big pet peeve of mine.
Yes.
We talk about that a lot with Canva and how
Ah,
people,
yes.
yeah, good lord,
Another hot take on that.
that's another hot take. That one's gotten me some heat online.
It's just like the templates are a tool, and
Right.
that's also how I talk about AI, like ChatGPT. It's a tool, not the product.
Not the product.
Like I'm the first one to admit I will get on ChatGPT if I'm stuck on captioning, stuck on content ideas. It's fantastic to like get some extra oomph on there, but like
Right.
you got to rewrite that. That isn't
Right.
like you
Yeah.
got to make that yours, and that's how I
Yes.
feel with like CapCut and the templates and certain ways that people do Canva templates as well. They're awesome. They're great in their own thing, but make them yours.
Make them yours. That like this is your business, right? Like, or even if it's not your business and you're, in our position where like we're working for other people, and helping them build their brand, that Like, you're representing their business. That's important. It's important to get their, to know what trends work for them, right? It's important to know what, um, their voice is. It's important that you take, again, templates are a great tool. They're a great jumping point, right? It's great to start there, but take that and make it this, right?
Yes.
And that is so important. And people just don't do that. And it baffles me.
And I think it'd be for a number of reasons, whether that's, they don't have time or overwhelmed or all the above. And I totally understand that. And I've been there. Like, I mean, definitely
I've been
starting
there.
out, yeah, like it happens, but it's just like that can't be the consistency. Okay, well, I hope that you all enjoyed today's episode or got anything out of the conversation about micro trends. Micro trends are great. They can be really relatable, but at the end of the day, like not all of them are for every business or creator, and that's perfectly okay. And join us next week. And I know we're gonna have another marketing related topic to talk about. But in the meantime, if you're looking for me on social media, you can find my business at thegraywaysolutions.com or on Facebook and Instagram under the same name. And that's gray with an A, Gray. And you can also find any of my lifestyle and more fashion content at THELIZABETH _ on Instagram or TikTok.
And then you can find me if you're interested. My business is on Meta, so Facebook and Instagram, at the Foxton Creative Solution. And then you can find my personal page, my lifestyle creator page, at Fox Newsom Munchkin.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, guys.